Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 369 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. It means a lot. And welcome if you're new, and welcome back to everyone else. I'm so glad you're here. We like to feel seen and heard, don't we? And I hope this podcast does that for you. I know it does for me, and you are a big part of that. So thank you. And remember to subscribe and give me a 5-star rating wherever you're hearing this, Spotify, Apple, and now YouTube. I have started creating these little cartoon videos that are on my YouTube channel. Just search Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast and you can watch them. And let me know what you think. Now be gentle. It's new for me, so I'm catching my stride there. It's been a lot of fun, but there's a learning curve. All right, so this last week, a song went viral. Now, it wasn't by Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran or Kanye or any of the regulars. It was by a little-known country boy named Oliver Anthony. Now, I have been seeing people post about this song, but I tend to wait when things pop up like that. I don't usually pay attention until someone that I really trust, I follow, puts it out. And then I'll go check it out. So I'd been seeing it go around, and I didn't watch it, though, until Joe Rogan actually posted it on X, which is formerly known as Twitter. So I knew at that point it must be worth listening to if he posted it. So the song is called Rich Men North of Richmond. And I am so glad I listened. Now, for those of you like me that aren't great at geography, Washington, D.C. is north of Richmond, Virginia. That gives you a clue into what the song is about. Now, if you haven't heard it, it's definitely worth the search. All you have to do is type Rich into the search section of YouTube, and I bet it comes up first because it's so popular. So it's by Oliver Anthony. Now, this song actually reached into my soul, grabbed a hold of it, and I don't think it's let go yet. Now, obviously, it hasn't, because I'm sitting here talking about it. So it touched me deeply. I know I say this a lot, but I genuinely have a love for people, just people in general. And that's why I think this song really got a hold of me. I was in the grocery store the other day, and there was this black man, and he was maybe 38 or 40. Looked like he'd put in a long day of work. It was later in the evening, but he was thin and looked tired. His clothes were covered in what looked to be sheetrock dust or some sort of paint, but he was just getting a few things from the vegetable department where I was as well. Now, I was reaching for a zucchini, and instead of getting it into my cart, it actually flipped out of my hand and landed right in front of him. And I apologized, and I said, I did not mean to throw zucchini at you, I promise. To which he laughed, and he picked it up, and he handed it to me. And it was just a lovely moment. Now, in my mind, I pictured his wife asking him to grab peppers on his way home from a long day so she can cook a healthy meal for their family. I don't know if that's what he was doing. I don't know. How could I? But I do know that he was so kind to me, and I was so kind to him, and it felt really good. Just two human beings living the best we can and enjoying each other's, kindness. That's what we were doing in that moment. It didn't matter what color we were. He didn't care, and neither did I. Now, that's weird, though, because the news says we should care. If you believe the news, the country's totally divided, and different religions and races and genders are all at each other's throat all the time. But that isn't what I see. That may be their altered reality that they're selling for a narrative, but that isn't what I see. That's not the world I live in. I wonder if you feel the same way. I imagine you do. Now, in that viral song, and I hope you listen, I'll put it in the show notes, but in that song, he says, it is hard living in this new world with an old soul. Do you feel in a way like you're an old soul living in this foreign new world where up is down and right is wrong? I mean, it's easy to think you're the crazy one. But what's right doesn't change simply because someone is screaming the opposite at you from every direction. You aren't crazy. Maybe you're an old soul living in someone else's vision of a new world. And the good news is you don't have to accept someone else's altered reality. You don't have to accept anything that feels wrong to you. And it isn't our job to fix someone who has a different opinion and believes in altered reality. But it also isn't our job to cater to it. Now, if someone wants to believe something crazy, let them. It's fine. The consequences are for them, not for us. But now, I'm not going to be a party to it. And we do have friends that have kids that are struggling with some of the latest fad altered reality, and my heart goes out to them. And I do go out of my way not to offend. I don't ever want to offend anyone. But I'm not going to step on my old soul beliefs, the things I know to be true, to cater to someone else's insecurities. I'm just not going to do it. And I know it seems like life has been really hard the last few years. It really has, mainly since COVID. And it's easy to just feel so negative and like things are bad and it doesn't seem like they're getting better. And I do believe that there are rich men north of Richmond, meaning rich men in Washington, D.C., living off the backs of good, hardworking Americans like you and like me. It's not just rich men, it's rich women too. But I also believe that things are getting better every single day. Now, hear me out before you call me crazy for saying that or turning me off. Think about it. Before COVID, people just blindly trusted that every single medicine a doctor prescribed was for our own good. They knew better. We thought doctors were only looking out for our health. But now we know that maybe that isn't always the case. Maybe, just maybe, we ought to be taking a little more responsibility for our health and not handing that job over to a doctor that is taught to prescribe medicine for a living, not to get to the root of the problem. Doctors are not bad people, they're good people. But you aren't sick because your body is deficient in the latest pharmaceutical. There's a root problem that needs to be addressed. And I think people are waking up to personal responsibility because of the monster that was COVID. It's waking people up to maybe we should be looking at our health from a different perspective. I know for me, it was a real eye-opener. But you see, that's all good things. That awakening is going to make us healthier and less dependent on drugs. COVID did that. It seemed like that was something that was so super bad on its face. But that's what it took to get people to be more responsible for their health and not leaving it to drugs and pharmaceutical companies that profit from it. So something really good and life-altering actually came from COVID. That's why it's so good to always look at situations from that question. How is this working in my favor? It also opened the eyes of a lot of parents to watch their kids to what their kids are being taught in school. Some of this altered reality is being force-fed our kids from kindergarten. To what end, I don't know, but it can't be good. But you see, you don't have to accept that. Your child is your child. It's not the government's child. You get to instill the values you want. And look, if someone else wants their child to have an altered reality, it's not our job to change that. Leave it alone. You being an old soul means you rise above it. You raise your kids with your values, and if you see someone trying to influence your kids intentionally in a way that will hurt them, you remove them from that influence in whatever way you can. It may mean homeschooling, private school, or moving school districts. I don't know. But I do know you don't have to accept an altered reality. We don't have to accept someone else's vision of a new world where wrong is right and right is wrong. You have just as much right to your belief as anyone else does. You're not less than because of your values and beliefs. But remember, someone else is just as entitled to their values and beliefs as well. And it isn't our job to change someone else's values and beliefs. It's only our job to live true to ours. And if we live true to our values, we don't have to fight against an altered reality. Fighting against something actually brings more of it into our life. You ever notice that? So fight for something, not against it. Work for something, not against it. I think that's where we're headed. Old souls are standing up because guess what? There's a lot more people with an old soul than we realize. And that's why that song, Rich Men in Richmond, in north of Richmond, was the most listened to song in the world last week. Even though it was a country boy on a banjo with his dogs laying around in the middle of a small town in Virginia. When things seem upside down, just ask yourself, how could this be working in my favor? Because it is. It just may need a minute to work its way out. When you see things on the news that seem absolutely upside down and not in your reality whatsoever, take it for what it is. It's someone else's altered reality that has nothing in the world to do with you. Because maybe you're an old soul with the power to recognize right from wrong deep in your gut. My challenge to you this week is to embrace your old soul. Be proud of your values. You don't have to hide them. And don't fight against people living in an altered reality. Fighting against things make them bigger. Be for your values. Be for the things you know in your heart are true. The world is craving old souls, and that's why that song went viral, because we're tired of feeling like we have to sell our souls to fit in. But it is a human need to fit in, and when the loudest voices are screaming altered reality, we feel like that's the only way forward. until you see that one brave old soul say, enough. Let's work to be that old soul. Share this with 3 old souls in your life. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days.